Vietnam's history is a rich tapestry woven with centuries of dynastic rule, external influences, and internal evolution. From the legendary foundations of its ancient kingdoms to the complex struggles for independence, the story of Vietnam reflects the resilience and ingenuity of its people. This essay explores the dynastic period of Vietnam, tracing its historical trajectory from its mythical beginnings, through Chinese domination, and into the establishment of Vietnamese independence and culture. The legendary Hong Bong Dynasty. Vietnamese history is deeply rooted in legends, and the Hong Bong Dynasty is regarded as the first recorded dynasty in Vietnam, believed to have been established around 2879 BC. According to legend, the dynasty was founded by the Hung kings, who ruled the kingdom of Van Lang, the first known state in the region. This mythical period is significant in Vietnam's cultural identity, laying the foundation for the Vietnamese people's sense of unity and independence. Despite the lack of archaeological evidence to fully verify this dynasty's existence, the Hung kings hold a revered place in the nation's consciousness, symbolizing Vietnam's early efforts at state-building and governance. The rise of U Lac and Chinese invasion. In 257 BC, Tuc Phan, a military leader from the neighboring U Viet tribe, defeated the last Hung king and established the kingdom of U Lac. He took on the title of Njung Vong and constructed the famous spiral-shaped citadel of Co Loa, an ancient fortified settlement near modern-day Hanoi. However, Njung Vong's reign was short-lived. In 179 BC, the Chinese general Zhao Tuo, known in Vietnamese as Tru Da, conquered U Lac and incorporated it into the Nanyue Kingdom, marking the first of many Chinese incursions into the region. By 111 BC, after the Han-Nanyue War, the Han dynasty of China annexed Nanyue, beginning nearly 1,000 years of Chinese domination over the northern regions of Vietnam. For centuries, Vietnamese culture and society were influenced by Chinese administrative practices, Confucianism, and agricultural techniques, but the Vietnamese people never ceased to assert their distinct identity and desire for self-governance. The struggles for early independence. Throughout the millennium of Chinese rule, numerous Vietnamese uprisings highlighted the people's yearning for autonomy. The most famous early revolt was led by the Trung sisters in AD 40. These two noble women from a prominent Vietnamese family raised an army and managed to drive out the Chinese authorities, establishing an independent rule that lasted for 3 years before the Chinese reconquered the territory. Despite their defeat, the Trung sisters remain national heroines in Vietnam, emblematic of the country's spirit of resistance. Later, in AD 544, Lai Bi led another successful rebellion and declared independence, establishing the short-lived kingdom of Van Xuan. This independence was similarly fleeting, as China regained control in 602. However, by the early 10th century, the region began to slip out of direct Chinese control, leading to a period of semi-autonomy under the Cuc family. The tide definitively turned in AD 938, when the Vietnamese Lord Ngo Nguyen decisively defeated the southern Han state at the Battle of Bac Dang River. This victory marked the end of Chinese domination and the beginning of a fully independent Vietnam. The Dai Viet Kingdom and Dynastic Golden Era. Following the establishment of full independence, the Vietnamese state entered a golden era under the Dai Viet, Great Viet, Kingdom, particularly during the Lai 1009 to 1225 and Tran 1225 to 1400 dynasties. This period saw the flourishing of culture, governance, and military prowess. The Tran dynasty, in particular, is remembered for successfully repelling 3 invasions by the Mongol Empire in the 13th century, led by Kublai Khan. The Vietnamese victory over one of the most formidable military forces in history solidified their national pride and showcased their strategic ingenuity. Buddhism also reached its zenith during this era, becoming the state religion under the Lai and Tran dynasties. Temples, pagodas, and monasteries were built across the kingdom, and Buddhist teachings deeply influenced Vietnamese culture and society. The state was stable, agriculture and trade flourished, and the Dai Viet Kingdom expanded its territory southward in a process known as Nam Tien, southward expansion, gradually absorbing the kingdom of Kampa and parts of the Khmer Empire. Turmoil and civil war. The Liu dynasty and the Nguyen Trinh rivalry. The 15th century saw the rise of the Liu dynasty, which is often regarded as the high point of dynastic Vietnam. Under Emperor Lu Tantong, R 1460 to 1497, the kingdom reached its peak in terms of administrative reforms, legal codification, and territorial expansion. Emperor Lu Tantong is credited with expanding the boundaries of Vietnam, consolidating central authority, and promoting Confucian principles. However, the stability of the Lu dynasty was short-lived. By the 16th century, political infighting and external threats led to the fragmentation of the state. The Mac dynasty briefly seized power but was soon replaced by a restored Lu dynasty. Actual power, though, was divided between the Trinh lords in the north and the Nguyen lords in the south, resulting in a century of civil strife. This prolonged period of warfare ended when the Tay Son brothers rose to power, briefly unifying the country before being overthrown by the last Nguyen lord, Nguyen An, who established the Nguyen dynasty in 1802. The Nguyen dynasty and the French Indochina period. Nguyen An, who ruled under the name Emperor Gia Long, unified Vietnam and established the Nguyen dynasty, which would be the last ruling dynasty of Vietnam. However, during the 19th century, Vietnam faced increasing external pressure from European powers, particularly France. By the mid-19th century, the French began to erode Vietnam's sovereignty, first through military intervention and then through political manipulation. In 1887, after a series of military campaigns, France fully integrated Vietnam into French Indochina, imposing a colonial government that altered the country's political, social, and economic landscape. The Vietnamese people, however, resisted colonial rule through numerous revolts and uprisings, driven by nationalist leaders like Phan Boi Chau, Phan Chau Trinh, and later Ho Chi Minh. Their efforts laid the groundwork for the independence movement that would eventually drive out the French in the mid-20th century. Conclusion: Vietnam's dynastic history is one of resilience, adaptability, and an enduring desire for self-determination. From the legendary Hung kings to the complex power struggles of the Lu and Nguyen dynasties, the country's past is marked by both periods of prosperity and strife. Even during foreign occupation, the Vietnamese maintained a strong sense of identity, ultimately emerging as a sovereign nation. This deep-rooted history has shaped the character of the Vietnamese people, whose perseverance and cultural pride continue to define the nation today.